Hi, welcome to today's Next Normal show. And it's a real pleasure to talk about the future of sports retail. And there's nobody better here to talk to than Vijay. And I'm so grateful and happy to have you today. And you'll give a short intro, and then everybody who listens in and who looks at it will understand that this is the right guy, right person to talk to on that topic.
Thank you, Joseph. Hi, everyone. My name is Vijay. I currently work at Foot Locker as the CEO for the Europe, Middle East, and Africa division of Foot Locker. But what I wanted to say in terms of my background is that in the last 20 years, I've had 3 or 4 different jobs and companies. And I started out with working at Nike for over 6 years, when Nike was much more of a wholesale company rather than a direct-to-consumer company. As you know today, all wholesale brands, whether they're a luxury wholesale brand, whether they're a sports wholesale brand, many of them are now themselves moving into retail and moving into the direct-to-consumer business. The second, I spent about 4.5 years of my career working at a company called Blue Nile. They're the world's largest online retailer of diamonds, especially diamonds, high-priced diamonds and high-quality diamonds. And while we were a pure play online player, during my time there, I noticed that the biggest need was to try to set up showrooms or retail experience centers, if you will, right? But we didn't know a lot about retail stores. And then the last phase of my life has been much more with traditional retail brands. The first 3 years was in a department store environment, and then the last 5 years have been in a multi-brand footwear environment, which is what Foot Locker does. So we sell lots of different people's products, and in that situation, a lot of the focus has been on investing in digital and investing in that omni-channel experience. And so the point that I'm trying to make there is, if you look at those 3 pieces, the wholesale players, the pure play online players, as well as the traditional brick and mortar players, they're all starting to converge, because all of them have to do brick and mortar, all of them have to do digital, and all of them have to focus on building that relationship with the consumer.
Yeah, and thanks for and that's exactly the point, having that convergence. And I think coming from diamonds, and I think that's a great start, because nobody in the past would have thought that you can sell diamonds online. And what is sold online today is cars, is diamonds, is very high-priced watches in that end. And on the other side, you have this bricks and mortar approach on shoes, and the experience which comes with that. And specifically on COVID, and looking pre-COVID and post-COVID, as far as we have post-COVID, the changes and the dynamic of that change, online, offline conversions, have probably been affecting you a lot, and you needed to change things rather quickly, which usually would have been maybe a multi-year plan to execute. You probably sped up a lot in that time.
Yeah, so let me start by saying, again, if I think back to kind of my own career and my experiences, I moved specifically from wholesale to retail to get closer to the consumer, but then understood that in the pure play environment, experience centers to be successful, right? So the point of that background in the conversation is, with COVID, what is interesting is it definitely sped up the move from brick and mortar into truly digital or omni-channel experiences, right? So to your point, a lot of retailers that did not have buy online, pick up in store had to turn it on during the COVID time period, right? A lot of people that had buy online, ship from store that did not have it had to turn it on, because otherwise your stores were locked up and that inventory was sitting inside that store, right? So there was a lot of things that happened in a very, very short period of time that I believe. So if you think of it, this is the way I think of it. In the short term, the biggest beneficiaries of COVID, if you look at most of 2020 and a big chunk of 2021, were honestly the pure play retailers, because for them demand just went up, right? When my stores were closed, I became a pure play retailer because I had no revenue coming in from the stores. So what that made me do is really invest heavily in technology, in consumer online experiences, in marketing, all of the aspects of it, in supply chain, in customer service, so that I can provide a much better experience, right? So I think the good news is technology scales up much faster than the brick and mortar side of the business, right? If I have to take a store and multiply it 100 times, I need 100 times the capital. In technology, it doesn't work that way, right? If I built a base for 10,000 orders per week, and all of a sudden I get 100,000 orders per week, yes, there's a lot of pain involved in doing that, and that's the pain that you're referring to, but you're able to catch up to it and build that out. So I believe that while the short term has been more favorable for the pure play online players, I believe the long term, in terms of the COVID impact, is much more favorable for the traditional retailers, because we caught up. I would say in general, most people did about 3 years worth of investments in 3 to 6 months.
And I think the important thing is you caught up with service. So I think that's a part to say, hey, we have a certain base, but in the end, winning customers, yes, it's price in a certain sense, but on the other side, it's the kind of service that I receive, and that's the investment that you took on there. And maybe jump into first let's quickly dive into bricks and mortar, but then also take this digital side on. So when you open a new store like Barcelona, which is like you said, a heavy investment and a big move in those times, because not as many large retailers actually opened new stores in those times. As far as I saw it and I looked at it, there are a lot of services in there and a lot of concepts which actually converge online, offline. Maybe you can relate a little bit on why opening a store and what building in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we've been on a journey as a company. It started many years ago in Europe, for example. We built one of our first flagship stores in Marble Arch, then on Champs-Élysées in Paris, and then on Buenos Aires in Milan, and then most recently in Barcelona, as the story you're referencing. During this time, we also have a lot of operations in North America. We built one of our first or our most connected store at the time, about 2 years ago, on 181st Street in New York. And that was really interesting because we took an approach that said, if you had to put a lot of technology into a store, what would that store look like? And what that means is, how do you recognize a customer when they walk into a store? How do you make sure that they can use your app? And how can you make sure they can kind of interact with you? Right. So we took a lot of the learnings that came out of the 181st store in New York, and we actually implemented it in Barcelona. So we actually, when you walk in, you have QR codes that you can just use from your phone to get more information about the products. You can get more, it essentially ends up being a little bit more of a self-service tool in that sense, right? So that's a big part of it. But the whole concept is, it's much more inviting. It's much more, a much bigger and better presentation of the brand, right? Therefore, you have a lot more variety. But everywhere you look, you can have an aspect of it from a service standpoint, whether it's shoe care and cleaning the shoes, there's something different about it. Whether it's, how you interact. We also, in that store, for example, first time tried out our mannequins are made out of regrind or out of recycled sneakers, for example, right? And people really care about sustainability, right? So that's even with the lighting in the store, a lot of those type of things. So a lot of aspects from a design standpoint revolve around the sustainability principles as well. But over and above that, what we also did is we wanted to reach out to the local community. So we had a lot of local designers designing products. We do special events for local designers at the store itself. We sort of have enough space for, to host and organize small events. And that makes it unique, and that makes it kind of much more of a local experience. So that's how it is. And I think that trend will continue. It's not the first time, and it's definitely not going to be the last time that we're going to continue to push as we build out new stores.
Yeah, so I like that. And then just as a small point, I also think personally that this one global model, one store design for everything will not work in the future anymore. As you said, there's local more community necessity. There are different infrastructures and different services in different countries available. And actually, one of the things you also pointed out to me, of course, it's a different adaptation of payment possibilities, of usage. When you mentioned QR code, I mean, it's so different now. Whereas maybe for me in a post-pandemic world, in a pre-pandemic world, you still had the idea everything should more or less look the same or work globally. Where that's now pretty much changed.
That's a great point, by the way. So we just last week launched a new store in Brixton in London, and it's one of our first community stores in Europe. We have a few community stores already in North America, but this is really about a store of the community and by the community. And what that means is, it's the local people working there. Most of the staff that work there actually walk to work or cycle to work, right? Most of them have local knowledge, grew up in that community. They know what people like. Their friends are coming in to shop, and it becomes this sort of third place that people come and hang out outside of your work and outside of your home, right? But it's also in our own way. It's our way to reach out to some of the underserved communities that are in our markets, right? So that's part of that localization trend.
And wasn't this, I mean, this community feeling, I remember being in New York when Nike started to doing the runners club where you would meet in the store. Was this one of your concepts? Have you been in, because that was for me like such a big brand, but then you felt very local, you felt very, in a sense, homey. Yeah. That there are people who actually go together on a run and meet in such a big city. And this was always, whenever I had a chance, I took that. And it was always a great thing. You got great connections. You met local people. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we are actually doing something very similar. Obviously, as a brand, we stand for the culture of basketball, right? So basketball is big for us. So we took a local court along with the NBA and some of our vendors. We refurbished a court as well, a basketball court, which is local, and we are now supporting the local teams there as well and trying to upgrade that. As we do that in other cities in Europe, we might team up with a local football team instead of a local basketball team, since football is so much more of a core sport in Europe, right? So, but it is, to your point, it is about those connections, whether it's the running group, whether it's the basketball club or the football club. It's just that's the idea. There is you're getting immersed in the community, and all of the people who are working in that store are actually almost part of that community, and they sort of together they weave the future of that store.
And the interesting thing about the running group, but also when you mentioned basketball, I was when I lived in Shanghai, and coming as a young basketball player to Shanghai, or a young guy and loved to play basketball, I was amazed how many courts you had there and what kind of basketball atmosphere was in the city. And even back then, we had like chat groups to organize. And this is what I really liked about the Nike community back then, which I think you also set up for the courts. But the great thing is not only have the place, but have the community to say, hey, when do we play? Who is coming? Because playing alone is nice. Playing one-on-one is also nice, but playing 5-on-5 on a big court is even nicer. Yeah?
Absolutely. And honestly, that relationship turns from a retailer to a customer relationship to a friendship, right? Because you're coming in during the day and you're hanging out at the store, you're buying the products. When the evening you're playing that 3-on-3 or 5-on-5, basketball, right? And that's what makes the difference. So I mean, our consumers truly our associates in our store truly represent our consumers. That's an important part of who we are.
And this local journey, and then having the digital side of it, and just on a app level. I mean, if I register and I play, and I say, and actually Foot Locker knows what kind of shoes I'm in. Actually, you can recommend and say, hey, Joseph, buy the new LeBrons, or you're better off in some DeRozan shoes or whatever. There is on old school Jordan brand shoe. So that's something, because my weight, maybe some ideas, how much I play. So with my weight, probably a LeBron shoe wouldn't be the worst idea. So that's something you can actually add much more much more services for a person.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's very simple, Joseph. All starts with the relationship, right? At the end of the day, what you do with that relationship, you can do, to your point, using examples of, building a deeper relationship by being able to recommend products, recommend the technology, recommend kind of, what works, what doesn't work kind of thing. But all of that, ultimately, what we're trying to do is move into that community, hire people from that community, and ultimately build a strong relationship with that community. And that's truly done by the fact that our best customers are also sometimes the ones who are working in our stores. Because they love the idea.
That's a great quote. I mean, that's amazing. And being able as a B2C approach, I think that's what you want. And honestly, if you look at some car brands, and the car brand is always a good example. When I was sold to some car companies, when you drove into their parking lots and you saw cars of other brands, I mean, that should tell you something. The same when I worked with a mobile phone manufacturer, seeing that people are not using the phones manufactured but using other phones, this always tells a story that you maybe don't do everything right, if your own employees don't appreciate that. So every employee of Pyramid, hopefully, whenever they go into a quick service restaurant, they should go to the kiosk and order there instead of going.
You bring up an interesting point too, because ultimately what you're kind of getting at is a multi-brand environment is typically more favorable for consumers than a mono-brand environment, right? Because what you have is the power of choice, and that's really, really powerful, right? Again, we can take a customer and drive them towards one brand or one shoe or one promotion, but at the end of the day, they can see the choices and they can try on different pairs of shoes and then decide, this is what I want to buy. So the advantage of coming into a Foot Locker store is I might have this opinion that, oh wow, Puma makes or New Balance makes some amazing running shoes, right? So but I may think that I may try on the Puma and the New Balance, and I might like one over the other, right? And then I might change my mind. I might have come in thinking I wanted one brand, and now I'm going out, paying for a different brand. And that's, I think, the power of a multi-brand retailer, right? I think that's, to your point, your car and phone examples are more about specific manufacturers or brands that then their employees are employees. I mean, that's the best part of it. They don't have to choose between any one brand, right? They get the best of all worlds. So it's better for our employees, and I believe long-term it's better for our customers too.
And because one of the technologies, when you say you can pick several shoes, I just remember myself sitting in a Foot Locker back in the days when I played a lot of basketball and I used up a lot of shoes. Was always a point there. I tried the Nikes, I tried the Reeboks. There were still Converse back then in that part, so the D-Wade shoes and stuff like that. But it was always a point, people running off. You had different sizes. So I had in Nike, I had a different size than I had in Converse, than I had in Reebok. Reebok was always smaller, Nike always bigger. So there were some changes. So in the end, you send somebody away and say, I need a 12 here and 11 and a half here. I want this. And then the person vanished for like 15, 20 minutes. And you were sitting which was comfortable, but you just sat in there and there was a lot of stuff going on. And then he came back with shoes which were maybe not the color. And he said, I don't have the 10 and a half, I only have the 11. So that was a lot of, let's say, wasted time, of course, on the workforce, but also on the consumer side, because it was not that cherry. You didn't know what you were getting. You saw a certain shoe, but you didn't have the availability. And we touched on RFID, for example, which some of the mono brands like Nike and Adidas are pushing heavily in their stores to have more conversion and visibility. What is your view on that?
So in Europe, we've had RFID now for a couple of years. We continue to keep improving and tweaking. But the best part about it is that we have an opportunity to actually have the RFID at source.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm getting an echo here. I don't know if that's me or not, but I'll turn my volume down slightly just in case. But anyway, so what's happening is that RFID at source is now solving that problem. So if you came in, it's exactly same situation. I won't repeat your dilemma, but you sat
Yeah.
down and you said, I need a pair of, Nike 12s, 11 and a half Jordans, and a whatever, 11 Reebok and a whatever Puma basketball shoe. Then what happens is right then and there, they can just quickly scan and tell you what's available and what's not available in your size, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't have to go to the back room and go find the shoe and then tell you that. They can actually tell you, is it in inventory, is it not in inventory? So it makes it much more efficient, right? In fact, we are finding more than footwear, because footwear we've been doing for a long time.
But
Apparel, we've
clothes,
been increasing the amount
apparel.
of space for apparel and amount of apparel we're selling in the stores. And we're finding the
Yeah.
productivity with apparel has gone up significantly because of the RFID tagging, right? So these are the kind of efficiencies that you can get from a technology standpoint, right? And again, this is one of those examples of, you immediately know you put the power of the technology in the hands of our associates, so they can tell you right away, do we have that product in the back room or do we not? So at least what we don't do is we don't make you sit for 10 or 15 minutes and come back and say, we're so sorry, we don't have your size. Right? We can tell you
Yeah.
right away whether they have your size or not. Then we can go find the product and come back. And even when you go in the back room now, because of the RFID reader, you can find it very, very quickly. You can literally take the reader and start scanning it around, and it'll beep as you get closer to the product. So you can
Hmm.
literally use it to find the products as well. So it's all the way not and even bigger benefit than that is the inventory accuracy is much higher in the store,
It's higher.
right? So you don't have this issue that you used to have in the old days where the inventory is no longer accurate, right? So and that's not only in the store environment but in the online side as well,
Yeah, and
right?
I mean
Because
that's a huge topic. I mentioned working with a yoga equipment brand and one very large sport retailer in the US, and they just cannot get the inventory straight. They have problems with online returns to offline locations, and that's a very difficult situation. How do you want to make service if your data is not accurate? But besides the data accuracy, so when you mentioned the weight and the recommendation types, this is also, you need to actually do content, because Nike or Reebok, they don't give information to say, hey, this shoe is for people who are maybe a little bit heavier and it's comparable with this Nike or with this Puma shoe. This is information that you have to add on to the database and also recommend on the side of the equipment. I mean, socks is probably for me, running a lot, also playing and getting older. Compression socks is a great product that I cherish. So I think you have actually things that when I was 20 I didn't need, but now I really cherish.
and again, this is the advantage of having our core customer working in our stores, because they're the best ones to tell us, hey, the demand for hats is going up through the roof, right? People are no longer picking the sneakers first and then dressing that way. They're actually picking the hat first and dressing head to toe rather than foot to head, so to speak, right? So I
Yeah.
think these are what you're describing there ultimately is, for us, the biggest benefit of having our stores is that we can get a lot of feedback from our customers about what's working and what's not working, which you tend not to do as much from a digital standpoint, right? It's a little bit now. The flip side is the amount of data that you can share from a digital standpoint is significantly higher. So I can put more comparisons, and I can talk about cushioning versus the weight of the shoe, the fit of the shoe, those kind of things. I can talk a lot more about that online, and the consistency of that is much higher than potentially in the stores. On the other hand, the store associates are every single day talking to hundreds of customers and that therefore when they aggregate some of their data back to us, it becomes very clear where some of the opportunities are, what some of the trends are, where things are going.
And I think that's what you mentioned before, is like taking this best of both worlds and having a digital journey, which is maybe Instagrammable and gives a little bit of gamification and allows you to really drill down already, and then take that one into the physical world actually, and being able to deliver the service. I like the LeBron story coming to LA a few years ago. I don't know if was it when he won the championship in the year, or was it the year before, but I think that's a great example on how to have a complete customer journey and also really cater to a personal relationship.
Yeah, no, I think so the story that you're talking about is when LeBron moved from
Cleveland.
moved to LA to join the Lakers. We launched a pair of shoes with an augmented reality tool, right? So this is now more than 3 years ago, and this part of my point here is a lot of times technology starts out in the world of branding or marketing, and then over time it becomes more of a commercial experience, right? So for with LeBron shoe, they had to go out to Laguna Beach and go find that shoe, the virtual shoe, on the beach, and then they kind of it was like a scavenger hunt. So you get your next clue when you solve the first one, and then you get to the second place, you find the virtual shoe there again, you go to the third place, you ultimately ended up back in our store in LA, and the first 50 people who made it to the store got the right to buy a pair of a special edition purple LeBron shoes, right? And that kind of augmented reality technology that we use that much more to create the hype and to gamify the situation as you described. But the truth is, as we start to roll out over the next few years, that will become bigger and bigger part of how commerce is done as well. Right? I think of it as Instagram, right? Instagram was much more of a network, much more of an ability to share photographs and videos and reels. But now it's also heavily influencing what you buy and can actually become your ultimate the seller to the consumers as well.
Yeah, and maybe coming to the service side. So when looking at kind of potential service, especially on the multi-brand retailer side, 3D printing or customization has been a long time in the works. There always have been some T-shirt printing or some shoe design printing, but actually something more like a sharing part. So thinking about how long, or a subscription model. I mean, thinking the razor blade, the shaving club, but especially running shoes is a commodity. If you run, I mean, my small daughter started to play basketball. Now I took out my old LeBron shoes about 7-8 years ago, didn't wear them. I took them on, and the complete shoe fell apart. The sole fell off. I mean, those are it's plastic, and plastic is alive after a few years. It doesn't have the comfort. It doesn't have the fitting. It's not a leather shoe. It's a product which also has a clear time stamp and time point on it, which could be really, really bad on your health if you overuse it. So are those services where you think about, or I think you don't do them yet, but something like a subscription model, and after the kilometers just send you a new one depending on your
it's
weight?
a great question. Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that your shoe didn't work after you had saved it for many years. I can tell you, I have pairs of shoes that I've owned for 20 years. I have some of them I've worn, some of them I've not worn. I've never lost a pair of shoes. So I do think that, and some of it depends on the temperature where you live, so that can make a very big difference. But I've always been careful to store my shoes in kind of a cool place, if you will. But that aside, I think things do happen. It ultimately, but from a service standpoint, if I were to really think about it, for us, the biggest one that's impacted our industry is the buy now, pay later concept. I'll tell you a story. I used to run the digital business for Foot Locker. I started about 5 years ago. So the first 2.5 years that I worked with Foot Locker, and I was in a small town in central Wisconsin. And I got a call from somebody, and it was a clear Australian accent. And he said, hey, we have this company, and our core customer really overlaps with Foot Locker. I would like to come and speak to you. And he was talking to me from Australia. I was in the US, and I said, well, if you want to come all the way to have a conversation, I'm very happy to have a conversation, right? That company, fast forward 5 years later, had just sold itself to Square for $29 billion. It's called Afterpay, right?
Okay. Yeah.
At the time we were having the phone call, I think the company was worth $300 million, right? But we first tested the product in Australia. It was very, very successful in Australia, and then we ended up launching it in the UK, and now they're expanding into the rest of Europe, for example. But what is interesting is they went after a very small niche business, which was consumers who are between the ages of, call it, 14 and 24, who, because of the impact of the recession in 2008, 2009, 2010, did not want to use credit cards. So it was a platform built on people who own debit cards, who wanted to pay for the product, but wouldn't mind paying for a pair of sneakers over 3 equal installments or 4 equal installments. And Afterpay made that very, very easy for them. So that's the kind of service we're talking about, whether it's through a partner or whether it's service that we provide directly. That's the kind of thing that I think takes the whole, the service levels to the next level.
Yeah, because with that, once you're on an installment level, I think making a subscription is very logical in a certain sense. And
it's a different form of subscription, I guess, if you think about it, because you're still making monthly payments, and then therefore thinking about how you do it. But it's again, for us, it's less about trying to do technology or solutions for the sake of technology or for the sake of the solution. It's more about creating technologies that resonate with our consumers. And that's always the biggest part, right? So we very recently launched in Europe. We had it a couple of years earlier in North America, but we launched our FLX program, which is our loyalty program, right? And again, what we're finding with the loyalty program is it's a way for our consumers to interact with us, to give us feedback, to give us data, to tell us how we should operate the loyalty program. And most importantly, it gives us the ability to serve them at a higher level than we would, somebody who doesn't have a loyalty program, for example. So what it does is it helps us exchange, creates a platform to create that exchange and that communication, right? And so that works really well.
And I think the platform, because when I tried it, it's on WhatsApp Business. So you also have like a chat functionality, and you have direct possibility to really interact with a human in a store, mostly. So this is something I really like, to have a human-to-human interaction in the end, and having, like you said, something physical who has the experience. That's a great tool.
It's a great point that you bring up, right? I mean, I will tell you that I've worked at over 5 different companies, and no company, in my opinion, has been as diverse as Foot Locker. Right? Whether you look at it from a gender perspective, whether you look at it from a race perspective, look at it from a nationality perspective, it's truly the one thing that differentiates us is that we have a truly very, very, very diverse employee base, right? And across the globe, whether it's North America, whether it's Europe, whether it's Asia, and that helps us a lot, right? Because and then ultimately, to your point, it's not the technology that matters; it's the technology that enables the humans that really makes a difference. Right. And that's the piece and again, for having that diversity in terms of in our stores, helping the customers automatically creates better solutions. So I'm a huge believer that putting diverse sets of people together will ultimately enable much better solutions in the long run.
I think that's, I just remember the Harlem store. I think it's 125th Street. When I did an internship there in 2001, it was always party. Like, those people were amazing. And then we always played at the Marvin Gaye Park, at the park there, and had some hoops there. That was fun. We already, I thought we already breezed through the 30 minutes. We're at the 35-minute mark. If the audience wants to put up any questions, anything, please feel free to do so. We have one comment from Wolf Jochen, so that's really, really nice. So I think there's nobody in the German shoe industry and retailers. So he's it's great to have him in, and thanks for your comment. I don't know if you know him personally, but
I don't know personally, but I do know that Pierre was a member of our team and is helping us expand our store footprint. Has been a huge partner of ours and a huge advocate of ours in all of our major markets in Europe.
Yeah. Well, Bjorn is an amazing athlete. Was in the German national team back in the day. So that's run for the Olympics. That's very nice. Thanks for the comments. So any more comments? Feel free to enter. Actually, I saw that my LinkedIn kind of bulbed. So it's important that if you have comments, put them in the comments of the video and not in the chat group. Maybe Chris, if you can quickly click on the link, I can check that out. So if users put up something in our group, now just ahead was just some comments. Okay, now people just being happy and said it's great. So good.
Well, being happy is good, especially
Yeah.
in this day and age when we're dealing with a pandemic. Being happy maybe counts for more than anything else at this point. So we talk a lot, even as a company, about mental wellness and trying to find that balance, which has obviously become harder with everybody working from home as well. So it's an opportunity for us to So I mean, honestly, that's what we do, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you can call sneakers a trend, you can call sneakers a fashion item, but ultimately, what you're doing is you're selling happiness. Like people, you should see day after day, week after week, when you go into a store and people come in, they try something, and whether it's a kid buying something and thanking their parents, or whether it's somebody buying something for themselves, but they truly feel happy to have that pair of sneakers.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's an expression of life, and especially the more chaotic life gets, and the more things we get thrown at, clearing your mind with sports or whatever lifestyle part, even if it's, I mean, you also sell yoga mats, so it doesn't need to be running. There is a lot of variety, but it helps to clear and stay leveraged in that sense, and build community, build friends, and do things actually together. That was, I mean, during COVID, we here in the Black Forest, we have a lot of mountain bike trails, a lot of running trails, and a lot of skiing trails. And I think I never saw the mountains as full as this winter and during these days. And in the end, it's great to get people out there and to experience nature and really see the beauty that we have around us, instead of nothing against fitness gyms. It's great to go to the fitness gym, but in the end, you're in a kind of closed mind, even if it's very social. So it's a social environment, but having the balance and the point to recover that is probably a great thing. Yeah. So it's been a pleasure to talk. We could probably go in for another hour there. Do you have any closing words, like where should the Foot Locker fan, Foot Locker consumer go next? What's the store location you can recommend, or the service to check out? Is there something?
Well, hopefully you go to the local community that you live in, and there's already a Foot Locker there, and serve that and support. I prefer people go to the closest location, or even to our website, and that's where they get the best service. Ultimately, it is not about trying to drive everybody to the big cities to get the sneakers. It's about trying to stay in your community and us getting the sneakers to you, kind of thing. But I will say, just in closing, that I am a huge believer that the growth that we are experiencing, some of that comes from digitization. We talked a lot about technology. We talked a lot about digital. We talked a lot about omni-channel. The services, whether it's our people. That's truly our strength. The other part of the strategy is all about international expansion, right? So we just recently entered the Asian market only about 3 or 4 years ago, and now we're already in 5 or 6 key markets in Asia. And so we recently did an acquisition, a couple of acquisitions that we announced as well, and one of those brands actually have over 60% of the revenue comes in from online, and its core base is actually in Tokyo and in Japan. right? So again, there's a lot of diversification, a lot of things that are happening that are kind of truly unique. But for me, the big thing is, as a company, we have really focused on being a purpose-driven company, right? Our mission is about to inspire and empower youth culture. So we exist to serve youth culture, right? And in closing, I would say, from a European perspective, the biggest thing we're seeing is that you have to be able to communicate with your customers and help your customers. And they ask a lot of the asks right now from a European perspective is coming through the lens of sustainability. So, a lot of it is what they want to see is I talked about recycled mannequins, but there's opportunities in recycled hangers. There's opportunities in, making sure we, can sell more sustainable, Foot Locker bags, if you will, right? Sustainable products and from our key vendors. And so there's lots and lots of opportunities as you look at the transformation that we're going through as a company. You will see Foot Locker differently. And so keep your eyes open and please engage with us so we can continue to improve.
Great. No better end word. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. All the best to Milano. Hopefully you can enjoy an aperitivo today and some pizza, and yeah, good luck, and see you hopefully soon.
Thank you. Appreciate the time. It was a lot of fun. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.